thank you for the invitation. I work in this field since 17 years, so that's the time I work in school. Times before I worked in inter-ethnic conflict resolution in Romania, between Romanians and Hungarians, so that's one of my experience in the intercultural field, and the Romas as well. So I stick more on the prevention in schools, so that what I give you a short overview, what are the problems, what are the programs, and then I will explain a little bit how we do this in Hessen, because we do this in a certain way, and might be this is interesting. And why is it important for the schools? The school, everybody has to go to school, so that's a possibility to reach nearly all young people, and this makes it important. We are not in school so directly confronted with hate crime, but it is connected. And the sort of work, how we deal with conflicts or with violence in school, has an impact as well, maybe on hate crime. And there is a connection, and it is important how teachers know and learn the indicators about very difficult pupils, how they give it further on, and what are the critical incidents. So that is the part, and conflict resolution education is one part, but it's not the main point. Oops. Yeah. Oh, there is. Okay. What has happened?
Sorry.
Okay.
Did you write it on a Mac or
on a Mac? It's written.
Make your slides on Mac.
Yes. Okay. No problem.
But I have a Windows computer too.
No, it's a. I think hopefully it showed me that it has to be repaired. Maybe as I opened it, hopefully. So the present situation, and the second is what kind of prevention programs this is missing there, and then I will show you a little bit how our project Violence Prevention and Learning for Democratic Citizenship works, and I'll give you some examples for the program and how this is connected with school counseling. The question of development of schools is very important as part of our project. No. Okay. Yeah, we have what the phenomena are in schools. You know it, violence. This has happened since, I don't know, the whole area of, since it is, if schools, there had been violence in times before, violence by teachers, and as well now violence between young people. And the problem we are more confronted in the last years is the psychic dimension of violence. So it's what is called mobbing and what is the psychological or psychic attacks, verbal attacks. That has been sometimes more the problem than the direct violent. It's with the English term is bullying. I think we say more mobbing instead of bullying. And the new phenomenon is cyber mobbing. That means that the internet is used to bullish, to say negative things about other pupils. And it is anonymous, and that's the problem how we have to address, and so that's a relatively new phenomenon we have to go on with. And then we have racism and anti-Semitism as well, and right-wing extremism. And my question mark is this the only part of hate crime which can happen in school? Because we have these phenomena as well, that there are, for example, young people in a class who wear the same clothes, who make negative remarks to other students. So we have these phenomena, but is this the only part? And we have as well had these phenomena of extreme or these crisis situations. I don't know if you have heard about Winnenden. There was it's like Columbine, the Columbine fact in South Germany, where a young man killed 13, or I don't know exactly, students. This is as well a very hard situation. So these are the phenomena we are confronted with. And what is the reaction of the institutions? So what I can see is that we have the phenomenon of violence, or this very situation in Winnenden, and there is a reaction that we have to do programs, short programs, but we have not a situation where these programs are for a long term institutionalized. There is not a structure. For example, when I look to my team of 7 persons, no one of us has a fixed job in this position. No, not a fixed job, yes, but not a fixed position. So every year there is a new decision: do you work on this field or do you don't work on this field? For example, our the person who makes our office, she has a contract for 2.5 years, and we are happy that she has it for 2.5 years, because the years before there was an association in Lower Saxonia where she was employed and we had to pay her. So it were very curious situations how to do it. And so what I already said, when things happen, then there will be programs. For example, in Baden-Württemberg, in South Germany, then after Winnenden, there were a lot of people, but not as in fixed positions. They were said, okay, we have to build up prevention programs. And the question is about sustainability. Because on my opinion is, when I see the last 15 years when I work in this field, the sustainability is not a question of the politics. That they say, okay, we give you minimum for 10 years the resources that you can do the job. So there are often stops of projects and 2 years of pauses, and then you have to start again. So that's what we lived already. So I think these are the main problems with these programs in the schools, and this is German-wide. So it's not especially in Hessen, but all over we can see it. It is only Hamburg has an institutionalized place where 2 psychologists and pedagogues and 3 others do conflict resolution work and prevention work. So I will now explain some of the programs, or the most important, or not important, maybe important, but the programs which are relatively widespread in Germany. There are a lot of programs. I think if we count them all, which are in regional areas, we will find 50 or 100 or more. So I took only some of them, and I made the differentiation between prevention programs and intervention programs. But the differentiation is not so clear, because as well all programs of prevention can have as well implications in the intervention, and the intervention program as well has an impact on the prevention. So the differentiation is only to have a sort of systematic. Class council I will explain later. The buddy program is a program I guess influenced from the Anglo-Saxon area, which is a peer group education program where young people help each other, where young mediators were formed, where they, for example, if someone doesn't come to school, another buddy goes to him and picks him up to bring him to school, and so on. This is his buddy program. And then we have a lot of programs for social learning. That means you learn, it's a kind of emotional learning, that you learn how to give feedback, that you learn how to active listening. You make active listening. You make you will have a changing of the perspective. You take over the perspective of the other. So these kind of learning programs are there to build up social competences. Lions Quest is a program which comes from the United States, which was adapted to Germany, is as well a kind of social learning program, and is relatively widespread up in Germany. Then theater work is as well a part in very different kind of works, that students play a violent situation and found alternatives and so on. They are as well different kind of. And then Prevention in Team is a project which has been very much developed and is as well evaluated by Mr. Wagner. It's a project between police, teachers and social workers. And this is something very, well, that couldn't have happened 20 years ago, because there is an open minding towards the police from the side of the teachers and vice versa. And in this program, during 5 days, students learn how to react non-violent in a violent situation. That means to go out of the violent situation. So that means to leave the circle of the aggressor. So to go out. That is it's learned by role play. And the effects are, we could see that there are effects, maybe not long-term effects, but they are effects in behavior in these situations. And it's not only for the school, but it's also outside the school. So when they are on the underground or in a bus, so they behave as well, and not only in the school. And this project this has been organized now for 8 years. It's a very long time for in our opinion. And it is organized by a person who has a very strong contact to the schools. So that is very good counseled by this person. Otherwise, I think, and we have now about 100 schools, and since the 8 years there are only 4 schools who have left the program. And that is not very much. So that is very a positive result. And now what is new is the violence in new media, is the cyberbullying program. So there are now, that is more on the level of information. That this is the first point what we are doing. That means parents are informed about, because parents have no idea what children are doing in the internet. And they don't know how the internet works, and they don't control how long children are in the internet. And it is extremely, already in primary schools, how many hours children are now in the internet and use it, and this is one part. And they have no idea how this is used for bullying, for cyberbullying. And so we are now on a strategy to find out how we can do a better prevention work, but this is in the very, very beginning of okay. Now the intervention programs, I think Olveus is relatively known, especially in North Europe. It comes from Norway, but it is not in that, it's only partly implemented. I think it is the idea of you make a questionnaire for students, for parents and for teachers. How is the situation? How do they find, is there violence in the school? And with the results of this questionnaire, then they build up programs how to go on with this violence. So that is an intervention program. When there is violence, then they start with this program. Mediation is known as well from the Anglo-Saxon background part since the mid of 90s, and is mostly for young people. So young people were taught or were formed as school mediators, and they mediate in conflicts. So that is as well a part of peer mediation, of peer learning program. And as well, this has what I heard, but it is not really, the evaluation is not on the basic of effects, but it was an evaluation was made, and the conditions how this program could work, and the result was, but it's not on a good evaluation, that this is a positive part for the school climate. Arizona program, we call it Trainingsraum in Germany. That means that is a little bit ambivalent for me how this program works, because it is a program where you have rules. When students disturb the lessons, 3 times, then they have to leave the room and they go in a special room, and then there is a teacher. When it is good organized, there's a teacher who takes these students and speaks with them and asks what are the reasons, why do you have had to leave the room, how can you work that this is better. But often it is only that it's a possibility to kick out the students out of the room, and there is no teacher who has a formation or has a Ausbildung, training, and so this has a negative impact.
And it's called prison program.
Yeah, it should have. Yeah, so it's very ambivalent. It's interesting that many of schools ask for this program because it seems to be okay. Bring them out, and this is one of the main problems. Schools want that the problem is not longer there. Yeah, we don't want to have the conflicts, but they don't ask what can we do to solve the conflicts. Yeah, so this is as well, and we try, as the program already exists, that it has a certain quality, but it means we all only organize and help them when they do it with a certain quality and not in the same as in the sense of a prison. No blame approach as well from United States. I guess it's a program against mobbing or bullying. So that means when there is a student who is bullied, is that the right word, bullied, then the teacher tries to find a group who supports the victim, and including the aggressors. That's the interesting point. The group is consisting of 6 students, for example. 2 of them are as well aggressors, and 4 of them are more neutral. And these 6 people think how they can help the victim. And the victim is outside, and they have to reflect. And what they say, in 80% this works. So students really, they solve the problem because they took over responsibility. Crisis intervention this is a more a greater thing. What happened, especially after these attacks in Winnenden, Erfurt, and other cities, and this is more on the level of school psychologists. That means as well they came to America, had a training how to intervene, not only in such cases, but for example if a student suicides, or if it's an accident and the student is dead, and so on. And every school now in Hessen has a team, a crisis intervention team. If this works, this is written on another paper, but on the paper every school has to have this, and in every part in Hessen we have school psychologists which have a special training and which can be called. And for example, my colleague in the ministry, he has a telephone, and the telephone is 24 hours working, and then everybody, or if it's a crisis situation in schools, he can be called and he will organize then that the crisis team comes to the school. So that are these programs what we have. I published this in a book just in the last year, where all these programs are explained, and this is more or less the main programs which exist in Germany. So there are a lot of others. Colleague Winfried Schubert, for example, he has written another book. There inside there are more other programs explained. And now I want to give you a short idea how we deal or how is our prevention work organized. And from the history, we started in 1997 with mediation programs. That was, and at least we have 2,000 schools in Hessen, and we reached 200 of them, 10% of the schools were part of the school mediation program, and it was directly connected to school program. That means we wouldn't make it only as a separate program in the school. It should be part of the school development. That was already the idea. It is already part of school development, and everybody should accept it or even understand the idea. So that what we did is that we worked we tried to work with all teachers to give them the idea what is the mediation program. This doesn't happen every time, but nearly 10% or 20%, 30% made a training so that they got the idea. And after the mediation program, then we started with the program Learning and Living Democracy. So I think there is an interaction, a relationship between the question of learning democracy and violence prevention, especially when we look on the hate crime, because learning democracy is one fundamental thing to prevent as well, and to see how important it is to accept each other, to take over democratic rules and so on. And there was a German-wide program, Learning and Living Democracy, and we participated with mediation and participation. And this was the reason was because of violence, racism, right-wing extremism. That were the reasons why this program was brought in action. And after this program, we had in Hessen the possibility to have a transfer program, and this is the actual program, Violence Prevention and Learning for Democratic Citizenship. This is our program, but we don't know how long this will last. So we have heard about that it will be until 2014, but at least we say this is something we have to do all the time, and it could not be limited in kind of a project, because we have established so many structures now and so many networks that when we had to stop our work, a lot of prevention work in schools would have no support. So that was the history of our project. And now I want to say what is the main aim. What we are going to do is the main aim of the project is to support schools to implement programs and structures for violence prevention. That means structures. Not only that there are 2-3 people who are engaged in this field, but that the whole school is engaged, because we have as well the problem that sometimes in schools there are only 2-3 engaged persons who cover this field, and the others say, okay, wonderful, we have someone, he does the job, and we don't care about it. So that means it. And learning for democratic citizenship, and that means as well to build up a culture of democratic learning, and not only to learn about institutions, but to see democratic living as a kind of form, how it works in school, so that it has to live as well, and we cannot only pray democracy, we have to live it. So that is very important. And for this time it should become part of daily lecturing in school life, and this will support the change of school culture, because there have been a lot of evaluations about prevention in school, and they said the best effects we can reach when we have really a good new culture, when the school culture changes, then it's the best effect for prevention. Yeah, and the other important point what we see is that we see school as a system, not only as different individuals, only as teachers who have to do their job, but that we see it as a system, and that we mean that it needs a systemic approach. So that all important persons, that means teachers and headmasters and other persons, has to be involved in the process. And in the program of Learning and Living Democracy, we had as well parents and students, which were part of a steering group. And because it means as well that we have to learn as well from the students how they see the problems, and that we take over their knowledge how to develop a program of prevention in the school. Yeah, so the aim is to create a positive school culture. And now you see that is the difficulties you are confronted when you do a school development work. You have on the one side a sort of resistance and innovation, and you have always find the balance to take all professionals in the boat, that they do that work together. But you will have always a kind of resistance of this kind of teachers who say, okay, I have to do my job in my classroom, the school development is not my job. Yeah, and this is normal, but you have to find out to more and more integrate all of them. And the other point of our project is networking, because what we found out is there are a lot of initiatives, especially as well on outside the school, which do prevention work, but which are not connected with the work in the school. For example, we have youth work or social work outside the school, not inside the school, and most schools do not know what kind of work they do. They do not know what the police does. And for us interesting was that the program PIT, Prevention in Team, the effects that police comes and does a training together with teacher and social worker. So police became a normal part of the school. It was not something strange or irritating. Police came, and so if there were other problems, for example with drugs, then the policeman, there was a directly contact, a personal contact. This was the positive point. And we have a network against violence, which is mostly in Hessen, which is mostly organized by the Minister of Innenminister, what is the word?
Interior.
The Interior Minister, so it means the police. There are mostly police men active, and this network we are working together to make big meetings about bullying and so on and so forth, and as well, for example, violence in connection with honor. Das heißt die Gewalt im Namen der Ehre. Honor-related violence. Then we have a good connection with the school psychologists. We have 15 of them. We have 15 areas in Hessen. And in each of these 15 areas there's one school psychologist who has, his main job is violence prevention. But they make more individual counseling, and sometimes as well they say how to use some certain programs, and we collaborate intensive together. And then I already spoke about this network against right-wing extremism we are as well connected with. And we have as well contact to school development persons, because we have in these 15 areas we have as well school development persons which we inform, so that they can as well support our work. And we make headmaster training, for example, to leading a school in a democratic way. So that is one of the training we do, because this is a bigger part of our teacher training branch. So a short view on our program. What we do is mediation, social learning, citizenship education, class council, cooperative learning training for school mediator. So we try to have in each school where mediation programs are running, that there's one school mediator who has a training of over 130 hours, so that he takes over the responsibility that the school mediation program works. And qualifying for social pedagogues and pet masters I already mentioned. So this gives you a short overview about our, this is only in German. So you see the parts, this is mediation, social learning, buddy program, participation and learning for democratic citizenship. And this is a basic training we offer so that they have a basic idea about heterogeneity and constructive or participation and constructive conflict resolution. And we have this for different types of schools, for the primary school, the secondary schools, and for schools for handicaps, or what is, and disabled. And for schools, was ist berufliche Schule nochmal, das weiß ich gerade nicht. Professional training schools. And
this is
okay.
Strange, the German school system. Don't try to understand.
Training schools.
Yeah. I already said that the part of the counseling is very important, and that means we want as well with the item of violence prevention and learning for democratic citizenship that the school develops them itself further. So it's a part of a development program. The aim is sustainability and effectiveness for the schoolwork in the sense above. Therefore, it is important that school use external help, which is not clear for every school, or is not part of the culture, that schools take helps from outside, and to integrate and develop existing parts for social learning and so on. That means when we come to a school, we ask them first, what are you doing in prevention work? First question. Second, what works good? Not to say our program is the best. We ask first what of your programs you are satisfied with, which gives good effects. And third, what are your problems? What do you want to develop further? What have you to change? And then we try to find out with the school or with a part of the school, with a steering group, what is the best program which can bring you further on. Yeah. And therefore we have different counseling offers. For example, we have groups. We have 6 groups in Hessen with 7 to 10 schools, which meet twice a year, one day, and they are led by experts. And these groups as well, they have an exchange how their work works in the school and how they could bring it further. And they have then on this day a certain input to have new ideas. And then we have individual counseling in schools and long-term counseling. So we have different parts of these counseling programs. Oops. Yeah. Okay, I already. Yeah, now here, yeah, I wanted just to explain what I have forgotten is to explain what is the class council. This is a project coming from the so-called reform pedagogic. It's that means it is a democratic instrument which starts in the primary school. The students sit together and they elect a person who steers the lecture, who manages the time manager, the rule manager. We have different roles, and these roles changing are always. It's not that only one does it 1 year, but always a changing in this. And then they have every week 1 hour time to discuss about all problems they have. And often in the primary schools there are conflicts which they are dealing with. And I was really astonished how much empathy even these young pupil of 8-9 years develop, or how they show it when there were conflicts. For example, there was one conflict that a German boy and two Turkish girls said, okay, there's a German one who speaks negatively about us, or that was a kind of racism, what they thought. And then the question of the young student or the young pupil, she asked, how can we deal this problem? And then the boy explained what he meant, and he said, okay, in Turkey, I was once in Turkey and it was so hot, Turkey is negative, or the people were not friendly. And then another young pupil said, imagine in Germany sometimes it's also very hot. Do you think it's good everybody would speak negatively about Germans? So I thought, I was really impressed how they managed it. And in the moment where the students or the pupils couldn't handle it, then the teacher intervened. And so that's very important. It needs a certain attitude. We say in this field, it is very important to develop an attitude that you give responsibility really to them. But when the situation is too difficult, then you as teacher has to take over responsibility. That's very important, and not to intervene too quick, but as not too late. So that is really, you have to learn this. And the mediation attitude, not to find the solution and to be neutral, is very good to learn as well this. And so I'm very in favor of this class council, and actually there we have a lot of schools who ask for this, and it seems to me really a democratic instrument to learn democratic attitudes and as well to solve all the problems. And in higher classes then they can as well do projects, or they can discuss how the learning process is, how to implement, to make, for example, cooperative learning and so on. That's, for me, this is a very, very good example. Okay, this is now what I wanted to tell you, and this is only in German. Our homepage, but there you could find more information.